Good morning, Inspirational Souls, and welcome to Inspirational Souls Live, Episode 3. Today we have the kick-ass life purpose and career coach and animal rights activist extraordinaire, Dani Rukin. Dani is passionate about her mission to use her voice to highlight the plight of the voiceless. She has spearheaded speak-outs at grocery stores, zoos, fur retailers, slaughterhouses, and animals are being exploited. Dani is an organizer Everywhere Portland, as well as an active member with the Save Movement and Anonymous for the Voiceless, the Cube of Truth. She is also a regular contributing reporter for Jane Unchained, a social media news outlet producing original videos on animal rights, the vegan compassionate lifestyle, launched by nationally known TV journalist and best-selling author Jane Velez Mitchell. Velez is a popular vegan cooking show, Lunch Break Live, which Dani is often a regular guest whipping up some of her favorite. Talk about veganism, activism, and how one lives an empathetic and compassionate existence while respecting all earthlings. Welcome, Dani.
Hey, thanks, Antonio. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm so excited. Thank you for joining us on such short notice. Let's just jump right into it. What I wanted to do was, I want you first share how, a little bit of your life history and how you ended up right here today at this screen.
Sure. Where I'm from? Not sure. Let's see. I'm originally from the Midwest. And certainly wasn't vegan, didn't grow up vegan, didn't go vegan until I was 55 years old. And that was just a year and a half ago. I come from, the stockyards of Chicago, the heartland. And I was very, close with my dad, very identified with, we were very much, steaks and chops. He was a steaks and chops kind of guy, really into sports, really alpha guy. And, I learned how to be a foodie with my dad. Like, I loved eating adventurous food, and none of it was vegan, that's for sure. So, and we would travel a lot with my dad, whether it was to exotic places and eating like, back in the 70s, eating like all kinds of foods that nobody had ever heard of, that were non-vegan, indigenous to that culture, but certainly animals. So I definitely have a very non-vegan background that I'd be interested in talking about, weaving throughout this.
Awesome. So what, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, was that moment, that epiphany, that moment of enlightenment?
Where I woke up.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
was it a boom?
It was sort of a boom, chick, boom, 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 chick. It was like, it was a process. It was kind of a lightning bolt combined with a process. So what happened was, I've always been a compassionate person. I've always been for, the underdog and for the most vulnerable among us. I didn't use that terminology, but that wasn't new for me to always want to do the right thing and be the best version of myself and do right by, anybody who had less power than me. But I wasn't, and I was always aware, I think to some degree, aren't we all sort of kind of aware that, eating animals can't be pretty, whatever has to happen to them, in the background can't be pretty, it's a necessary evil. So I grew up very much in a foodie, very much into, eating all kinds of food. Never occurred to me. But as I got older, I think I started to try to eat less. I never said eat less animals. That's not the terminology you use when you're eating animals, because then you have to actually think, oh, I'm eating a living, breathing, sentient being that wanted to live as much as you or I, who's, if I looked into their eyes, I'm looking into their soul. So as you know, I think it's once we stop eating animals that we start calling it for what it is, eating animals. But so all those years, I think I started to try as I got older to eat less because, you always knew it kind of wasn't good for your health, which should be a signal right there. Why is it that it's so bad for our health? and that it's so horrible on the environment, animal agriculture, and that it's horrific for, it's just bad energetic psychic karma to be committing violence, to be paying for and contributing to violence and cruelty and suffering like that, when as a people, humankind, we say we're about love and compassion and nonviolence, and yet we're doing this thing. Most of us, like 98% of the people in the world, are doing this. So I was one of those people. I tried to, I started to gradually try to eat less meat because I thought it was better for my health. I was always dreading the day I was going to find out. I remember when Bill Clinton was, when he was president, and then he always loved his fast food and everything, and then he was always jogging to kind of get the fat off, and eating all that meat and cheese. But I remember that he then had to have quadruple bypass surgery or something like that, triple bypass, and then he had to stop eating them. And I remember always thinking, man, I felt like it was a race against time. I was thinking, I hope I never have to get to that point, because he lost a lot of weight, and I just thought I could never ever give up eating what I love to eat, cheese and things like that. So I was always dreading the day that I might get a warning from the doctor, because I loved eating dairy, loved it. So where were we?
No. So you were talking about how you got,
yeah.
You were talking about how you got there. So, I had the opportunity. You have a great blog, the Daring Vegan, a great site actually, with lots of great information. And I was reading kind of your impetus story, which was around an elephant. And maybe tell people a little bit about that story. But I also want to kind of know if there is a 2017 update about the elephant, or possibly, have you met the elephant yet in person? So go ahead and tell that story.
I haven't met the elephant, Kavan, who's in the Islamabad Zoo in Pakistan, but I'm a couple degrees separation from Kavan, because I have some really wonderful comrades, animal rights activists, compassionate, beautiful humans in Pakistan, who are much more up close and personal. Sadly, to my knowledge, we're still trying to get him free. And in fact, so that's what started my journey, really. I think lots of things start anybody's journey, and then when you look back, and we just have to be open and willing to be open to truth, so that as we evolve and grow, when we get forks in the roads, that we choose the fork that is more in alignment with our values, truth and compassion and justice and kindness and empathy. So how the elephant, I wrote a blog, how an elephant got me to go vegan. I think that's what it was called, and that's what you're referring to. And I didn't really totally know what vegan was. I just thought it was an extreme kind of vegetarian, like so extreme I didn't even want to hear about it. And I actually was going out with a vegan. I had a vegan girlfriend back in New York City a while ago, sometime, I don't even remember when, I don't know, about 14 years ago. And I just remember thinking, I never even asked her what exactly it was. I just would tell my friends, and she doesn't even eat honey. Like, this was me. So if I can do it, anybody can. And in fact, I used to say to my friends, because it was like, it felt like such an ordeal with her to do anything. And I used to say to my friends, there's 185,000 restaurants in New York City, and we can go to 4. That's how extreme she is. So if that was the person then this is the person now. And like I said, I was always compassionate. So I was eating less and less meat and dairy as I got older, even though I just ate so much of it all my life. But it wasn't for any particular reason other than I started to feel kind of grossed out by it. Like, when you see the veins in the chicken and you'd go, ew, that's a chicken's vein. And then I would be like, no, that's just part of it. I'm eating chicken. And you know what I mean? You just sort of, because we've been conditioned. And like we all know, we've been conditioned. So there's no blame. I don't blame. I don't even have any regrets. Some people go, oh my God, I feel so guilty for all those years I spent eating animals. I don't. I just don't. I don't feel bad. I don't feel blame. I don't feel guilt. It's just, it was. It just is. It was. And what is now is now. So anyway, how I just even got on this journey was About almost 2 years ago, in September, about 2 years ago, a friend of mine who I would have dinner with, she'd come up from LA. We'd have dinner every few weeks. And she was like, I'm so upset about this elephant. It's in Islamabad Zoo. It's chained for 28 years and da-da-da. And I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. That's upsetting. And I never liked zoos or circuses anyway. So this isn't what, my story is my story. I just thought they were pretty sad, and I would just never patronize them. So I had that consciousness, but I didn't think much else about it. But anyway, so this elephant, she's telling me about it, and she goes, I'll send you the petition, you'll sign it. And I was like, yeah, I'll sign it, but I don't know what that's going to do. That's kind of pathetic. And it also reminds me, I remember there was somebody on my Facebook, and also kind of a client, and I would see her Facebook, and she always had, I know what it was. One of her areas that I was trying to get her inspired to connect with what she loves. And she said animals and animal, whatever she said, this is like, I'm talking about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. But all I remember is that I was very supportive of her to do whatever it is that she felt that was important to her for animals. But I remember feeling very disconnected. I cared about animals, but I just felt like, whatever, I just felt very disconnected. And I remember she always had a lot of petitions on her Facebook thing, so I just unfollowed it because it was just so many. The polar bears this, and the seals that, and the monkeys here, and it could get overwhelming. But they were just, so that was that. So you want me to go into the elephant story really quick? What happened?
Yeah, I think the elephant story is great. So
okay, so even if it's not great, it's my story. So. Yeah, what happened is going on 2 years from now, I became aware. I signed the petition thinking, whatever, I'll do it. It felt bad. So I did that. And then I started to do my homework a little bit about this elephant. And then there was a page, Free Kav on the Elephant. And like 27,000 signatures later, we actually got the elephant to get unchained at the zoo. Now, it didn't fully last. And there was it was just so much corruption and politics. But we did get the elephant unchained, and for the most part, there's been a lot of improvement. We've even got it where this elephant is supposed to go to sanctuary, but it's long and common. And even Cher got involved with it. So if you had told me less than 2 years ago that this thing that I got interested in, that then one thing would lead to another, it got unchained. 400,000 or 500,000 signatures later, more action started happening. We found him a sanctuary. It was all set up. Like so many things. Cher got involved and sent her people out to the zoo. So things can happen. People need to realize that we do need to be the change. And we'll talk more about that. So, because I think you and I are very much on the same page. So got interested in the elephant. And what that did I started to read about elephants, and I just was blown away by how amazing they were. I just was blown away by, I felt like, and I was writing on Facebook, I was like, oh my God, I found my kindred spirit. And I couldn't stop studying and learning about them. And then I started to learn about the abuse. And I started to learn that 100 elephants a day are killed for poaching. And I started to learn, it was all different facets of elephants and the history of them and the abuse. And I started to learn about the major people, many women who were fighting for elephants, and Elephant Nature Park, and Lex Schuyler, doing what she's doing with the elephants in Thailand, and Carol Buckley, what she's doing, and all the different paws here in Northern California. So that's what led me. And so what happened for me is that activated my old activism, because I was like an LGBT activist years ago back in college, back before most everybody was born. So there was all that going on. I've always been for peace and justice. I was part of the peace and justice movement on campus, Students for Peace and Justice, Amnesty International. I mean, you name it, I was a part of it. I was president of Alliance for Gay and Lesbian Wearers, so I had that in me. But what I wanted to say about this elephant is, so I started to learn more about the elephant's plight. It was very horrific. I started a page in October of 2000, it'll be 2 years this October, whatever that date is, 2015. I started a page called Women and Girls Against the Abuse of Elephants, because what I noticed on Facebook and everything is a lot of women were particularly, caring about the elephants, but I noticed a lot of helplessness. It was like, oh my God, that's not fair. And then it was like prayer hands, sad face. And it was like all these emoticons. It was like, there was just no activism, just a lot of victimization and powerlessness and helplessness. And it can feel that way when you're fighting for the animals, because we have been abusing and exploiting and using and just doing, that's what we do as a humanity, to allow ourselves, our own selves and each other and humankind, as long as we allow ourselves to use, exploit, experiment on, use for entertainment, use for a laugh, for any kind of food, to wear, to kill and to wear them anytime, for as long as we keep doing that, we will never, ever, ever know peace on earth, between each other, within ourselves, and between countries, relationships. Forget it. It's not going to happen. And I think a lot of people, most people are good, compassionate, loving people, but they turn away from it. And I know a lot of people, I used to be so incapable of seeing any kind of violence. I couldn't watch scary movies. I couldn't watch anything. Even if it was in the same house, I couldn't hear the volume. So I was one of those people. And I think with animal abuse, I knew it was going on, but it felt like, what could I possibly do about it? And I can't stand to see it or hear it. But once this elephant came along, this individual elephant came into my life, I started to move closer toward the pain and the suffering, not away from it. And so I started to post it, and I noticed a lot of people would be like, not wanting to see it. So that was clue number one. Then what happened is, because I was making myself to become more aware of the elephant suffering, I started to come across regular animal suffering. It started to expand all the animal suffering. And somewhere in there, I stumbled on slaughterhouse footage. I'd never seen anything like it. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, I could believe it, but I couldn't believe it. And I couldn't believe, and then I just started to question, well, these have to be isolated incidences. And this can't possibly be happening to the degree and on the scale that it's happening. And what I realized is it was industry standard. And when you realize that, and you allow yourself to really go there and not turn away and not be quiet about it, that's how the world's going to change. You have to go through your own personal pain. You can't run from it. We can't just love our cats and dogs and our little pet this and just our families or our children or our this, our. It has to expand. Suffering is suffering. Cruelty is cruelty. Violence is violence. Oppression is oppression. And victimization is victimization. So when I saw this, I started to, my brain was on overload. It was like, so what, and I started to eat. Right away, I said, okay, I was very public on Facebook, like, guys, this is a lot here. So I stopped eating. It was sometime in, I think, late October, early November. I said, no more pig. So that was it. No more pig. Then a week later, no more cow. So it wasn't like boom. It was boom, but then boom. So it was like, and I hadn't eaten much, pig anyway for a long time, because it was grossing me out. It was bad for your health. Like, I was already making the connection in some vague way. So very quickly, it was like no pig, no cow, no chicken, all in the course of about 2 weeks. And then very quickly after that, it was, no fish and so on. The dairy came a little bit later as I started to learn about the dairy industry. And then I watched Dairy is Scary, which a lot of people who don't eat animals know about. It's 5 minutes. You need to educate yourself. And I'm going to say something about this. I have a lot of friends who are feminists and who eat animals, and they try to eat humane meat. And that was one of the things I did before as well, as I was trying. When I moved to Portland a few years ago, I was like, woohoo, I can eat more, organically grown, locally sourced, pasture fed, they were calling it happy meat. And it does show that you have compassion. We want to know that we're not contributing to such horrific violence, which we are, because there is no humane way to kill someone who does not want to die. If you know of one, I'd like you to tell me, because if somebody came at you, if they raised you wonderfully, but they came at you and they grabbed you by the hair, grabbed you by the neck, and then turned you upside down and stuck a knife into your throat and sliced your head off, let me know how humane that is. Or if they did that to one of your loved ones, your children, anybody, it doesn't matter. That's not reassuring to know that they're going to take your children and raise them in a pasture and then separate them while they're kicking and screaming, because animals, you kill them raised on a humane, and those are also very questionable because it's a buzzword these days, humanely certified, humanely raised. It means nothing. Cage-free, it means zero. All that is that the multi-billion-dollar meat and dairy industry gets to slap these words on it. There's no such thing. 98% or more of our farming is factory farming. We are 7.4 billion people on the planet. We're soon to be 9 billion. We're not moving in the direction of, Farmer John with 2 or 3 animals, and that's not humane anyway. So let's be clear. That's not what's happening anyway. When it says humane, go do your homework. Investigators constantly, friends of mine constantly are going onto farms that claim to be humane, and they're taking footage, and there's nothing humane about it. It would make you fall to your knees and cry in agony if you saw what humane actually means. And 2, even if there was such a thing, there isn't, because there is no humane. It gets back to, how are you going to feel them? They develop families, they have feelings, they develop friendships. Families, you still have to forcefully breed on a humane farm. You have to forcefully breed them. They are not out there making sweet love in the pasture, the bulls and the cows. And we don't have the land for any of this. And so you have to, and we have so many people. So you have to forcefully breed them. Yeah.
Yeah, but the question is, you're super passionate about part of it. Possibly talk about the transition from just a vegan to vegan activism. Yeah, and kind of talk about some of the things, possibly that we mentioned in your intro, the different groups you're in and how they approach veganism differently. Somebody, Ann Salvatore asked, also, how do we mobilize others who may not feel the level of compassion? And I think that talking about the different groups you're in, work with, and some of the different activism is a good way to kind of mobilize people. So
how to mobilize people, that's a good question. And people aren't going to respond the very same way that maybe you responded or I responded to the issue. And it's that whole thing where, living a compassionate life, but how do you mobilize others who may not feel that level of compassion, right? So sometimes I use my humor. I would post things and say, okay, so if compassion for the animals isn't your thing, how about this, the fact that it's destroying the planet? How about this, the fact that it's destroying your health? I interviewed at a Veg Fest last year, Norman Gary, and he was a butcher. He'd been a butcher for 30 years or 35 years, and they were both vegan, and they were there to see Dr. Neil Barnard. And I asked them about their story, and he said, well, first of all, he says, I have a zipper that goes from here to down to here. And what he meant was he had all that triple, quadruple bypass heart surgery because he used to be a big meat eater. So for him, the gate of entry, the point of entry, the gateway was his health. And then his wife went to something at Kaiser, and she started learning how to cook. So that's how they did it from the health angle. Now they also have the compassion, because I think once you stop eating animals, it's not until you actually stop eating them that you develop a deeper level of compassion. So that's a very good question. So you get people what they care about. Do they care about their health? Do they care about the fact that the injustice of, big pharmaceuticals and hospitals and doctors and insurance companies, that there's just, it's a huge, they care about the issue of, that it's an economic farce that people are, eating animals and then getting sick and then having to have all the surgeries and everything. The other thing I wanted to say, just to go back to this elephant. So what also happened, how I went vegan and it went right into activism, pretty much right into activism, is that once this elephant got me turned on, I started to see all the footage and I started stopping eating them. I saw someone say on a page to somebody else, they said, how can you be for animal rights? You can't be for animal rights and not be a hypocrite unless you're 100% vegan. And I was like, vegan? And that's what started to happen for me. I was like, vegan, you can't, and that made sense to me. That's when I started going further into finding out about dairy and so on. And so that led me there. So what happened was, is I said goodbye to all animal products, and then right away, it was like, it's not enough. It's great that I'm stopping eating them, but I was watching things from Direct Action Everywhere, which is one of the organizations or one of the networks I'm a part of. And I was watching some of their stuff and reading and watching all the dialogue. See, that's what I encourage people to do, is learn. We must be open to learning, and instead of blaming and putting people down or yelling at each other and thinking, what they're doing is wrong. It's none of our business. Don't make it, if you want to be the most effective for animals, and you have to ask yourself, do I want to be right or do I want to be effective? And if you want to be the most effective for animals, you have to get your own game. You know, we have to up our game and keep focused. It makes no sense for me to spend an ounce of energy fighting and arguing or even internally judging or blaming other people and their path. It's okay to be outraged. I have a lot of outrage when we do the work we do and we're spending so much time fighting for the animals and we're exposed to so much animal suffering. And then, you know, we have to deal with the people who are like, whether they're bacon or I'm going to make, you know, have more steak on my whatever today because of what I saw. Also, friends. I've lost a lot of friends because they refuse. They have unfollowed me. They don't talk. They don't look at my stuff because they refuse to look at the issue, at what's happening. And what I have a hard time with is, as a feminist, having all these feminist friends and these social justice friends, this is where my outrage comes in. But I don't sit around and spend all my time in it. But if I feel it, yeah, I'll post something or I'll write a blog, get it out. It's okay to be passionate. It's okay to be angry, but don't stay stuck in it, because then after that, it's like, you know what? I'm not going to waste my time. Next, onward, focus on the animals. Always ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now helping the animals? If I'm complaining or blaming, or if you're this, that, and the other, if it's not, move on. And it doesn't matter what other people are doing in the movement. It just doesn't, why bother, right? So my activism came right away. It was like, okay, I've stopped eating them, and I had to learn I didn't even know what to do. And my approach was, I said to people, I'll eat cardboard before I eat another animal or animal byproduct. So I didn't wait. It gets frustrating. Some of you know it can get frustrating, like these people who are like, well, let me see if I can find foods I like. So we have to like go, okay, do you like this? Do you like that? Do you like that? Will you stop eating them now? It drives me crazy. So be yourself. I'm not saying act all polite and fake, you know, how you really feel about the situation. It's not okay. But yes, so if I didn't need that. It was like, I see what I see. I don't need to find out what I'm going to love to eat. It's not about me. And there's a saying that if it's hard to stop eating them, it's because you're making it about you. But when you make it about the animals, it's easy. It was lifted from me. I was a cheese and dairy addict. If you had told me less than 2 years ago, if you had said, Dani, I dare you to give up cheese for a day, to give up anything dairy for a day, I absolutely would not have been able to do it. I wouldn't have been able to do it. You would have had to offer so much money and then just tie me up to a chair, because I didn't know how to live like that. I would not have known how to live. So this is a spiritual awakening. When you allow yourself to feel the suffering and to get present and to connect yourself, we're all in this together, that they're suffering. Like Ingrid says, you know, a rat is a pig, is a cow, is a chicken, is a boy. We are all one. And so the suffering of another is the same as the suffering of me, the same as the suffering of my little dog here, is the same as the suffering of you. When you allow yourself to get that there's no difference, then you're free. And so it was lifted. Now, the actual day-to-day of not eating animals was very confusing for me. I couldn't go to restaurants because I ordered out a lot. I went to restaurants a lot. I didn't know how to do it, but I wasn't worried about that because the internet's so amazing. You can do research everywhere. You can get involved. You ask questions. I loved being a student, still do. I loved learning about all that. While I was doing that, right away, I was like, how can I get active? So now I have my moral baseline, stop eating them. And that's monumental and huge. We can't, that. And then I was like, where can I go? And when you open up your mind and your heart to making the decision it wasn't even some grand decision. It was just like, I got to help. I want to help. I didn't trip out about how it was going to happen or what it was going to look like. It's just something crossed to my newsfeed. And I think it was PETA was partnering with something I got on Portland Animal Activism, and PETA was doing something, and it was in front of our new seasons around Easter time with the Easter egg thing, to bring awareness that almost 300 million baby male chicks in the United States alone are ground up alive, because those of us who know, the egg industry is horrific, and there's nothing benign about it. And only male baby chicks are useless. They're a surplus. They're a waste. It's a commodity, so they have to get rid of them. And the quickest way is to suffocate them in mass, macerate them, whatever you want to call it, grind them up alive. So on Easter, I joined this group, and I went out to our in one of the health food places here, one of the chains, and we just went outside, and we had signs, and it's like grab a sign, and I looked at all the different signs, and it was like, meat is murder. That's the one I'm going to grab. You just got to go with what's inside of you at the time. So that's that was my first, I think it was my first action. I kind of, there's been a few thousand actions since then, but I think that was my first. And I got to know people, and then the community. You start to get to know other activists. I love being with other animal rights people, because it's just such an amazing community of just individuals. Like, it can be from every group, every social every age group, anything. We're all in this together, and it's just such a great community.
That's awesome. And you have so many great things. Like you've said so many great things. Often when I'm listening back, I mean, I'll just be listening somewhere and just soaking in all these awesome things that I can do this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. You're amazing.
So with a couple of things, I was super impressed, and maybe talk a little bit about the what a speak out is. But you did this speak out interruption at the church with their pig roast, and I think that was such an important thing, because you took this route, and I'm sure that people do it all the time, but I hadn't seen somebody do it on social media. You took the route of writing a letter. Mm-hmm. And the effectiveness of that blew me away. So talk about that. Talk about people, sometimes people don't want to grab the sign and stand in a grocery store or do other things like that. What are besides those type of things? Talk a little bit about the pig roast, how you got this church in that. Yeah. And talk about the letter. I'm kind of also interested about what went on in the meeting. I'm not sure if that was confidential, but go ahead and
yeah, let me tell you. So you're touching on several really important points. So one, what I want to just say is that, it's all about leadership and developing the leader within ourselves. It's an inside job, and we all, it's our duty in life in general to, to become the best version of ourselves, and then to bring out the best in others. That's what life is all about, right? So there's actually a couple of things. There was the pig roast. I did not actually do a speak out. There was a threat of a speak out. The speak out you might be referring to, which we can talk about, the first one of the first speak outs I did is I went into a grocery store. One day I got so frustrated. I said, I can't take it anymore. I just can't. This was last September. It was almost a year ago. I was like, I can't take it. All this, the suffering, and that we're just walking around, sleepwalking, and everybody's just eating animals like there's nothing going wrong. It was like, Night of the Living Dead. You feel like you're in a nightmare. Every day, most of us feel like, as activists, we have to deal with this. So one day I got so frustrated, and a buddy of mine, an activist buddy, said, do you want to go to a grocery store? I said, I want to go to a supermarket. I was swimming one day, and I was like, I want to go. And I had been watching Direct Action Everywhere speak outs. They very inspired me. And I was having my process around it. Like, is this okay? What about when they do this? This is too in your face? Is this too embarrassing? Is this, I was having my own process, and I can't stress enough to people, allow yourself to have your own process. And I also, after I tell you what you asked me, I want to address and talk to people about everyday activism and about doing things. You don't necessarily have to be on the front lines, and it can change on a dime. Like 1 minute you might say, I could never do that. Like when I watched them bear witness in Toronto Pig Save, and Anita Krantz and all those people, and those, like school teachers and just regular ordinary people on their, with jobs going or not jobs, whatever, just going and bearing witness. I thought, this is so torturous to watch them see the pigs going to slaughter and the animals going to slaughter. I thought I could never do that. And then that story, I actually eventually was one day I was in Los Angeles, like, there's one tonight. I can do it. I'm going to go. I grabbed a buddy, and that's another story. But just never say never, but don't try to force yourself to do something that you feel like you can never do or don't want to do. It's not about that, but you do want to just continue to open your heart and mind and ask yourself, and get out of your comfort zone and ask yourself, what is it something that I would like to do today for the animals? What would I like to do today? And it could be, you could get leaflets. I can share to people. I do all the time. I tell people how they can get leaflets, like from Mercy for Animals and PETA and Vegan Society, Vegan Outreach. There's so many sources they can send you free leaflets. Now I have organizations sending me leaflets where I've never asked for them. I never heard of them. And then if I agree with it, on speciesism or whatever, I just spread them all over. But what I want to say to people, we'll talk about this more, about everyday activism or behind the scenes, like this amazing guy, Matthew. He just helped me edit one of our direct action everywhere New York City disruptions we did in Greenwich Village a few months ago. Yesterday, we hunkered down for over 6 hours. That's activism. He did that, and he's putting his toe in the water of activism, but he brought those skills. So we did that together. If you can print signs for people, like, I suck. I don't know how to do logistics, and I don't know how to do, the signs and how to get them printed and all that stuff. If somebody can bring that skill, that helps me. Somebody like me who's willing to be. It's just, and I was just in Toronto, and I want to talk about the activism. We can do it later, but about the activism in Toronto, we just did like everything: Cubes of Truth, just direct action everywhere, disruptions, Save Movement, Bearing of Witness. But there was a 14-year-old girl there, sweet as pie. You'd never know in the mall that she'd be the one who was grabbing the megaphone, because she was actually organizing this direct action everywhere. 14-year-old girl. Organizing a disruption. So lovely, so calm, so just really sweet. And then she takes the megaphone and she just starts speaking her mind. It wasn't angry, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it just was herself. So in terms of the pig roast, this just happened recently. I did not do a speak out. What I did is that I became informed that there's a church in town, a very well-renowned church, that does an annual pig roast, an annual decades-long pig roast at their Labor Day celebration. It would have happened yesterday. This pig roast has been happening for decades. It would have happened yesterday. Somebody reached out to me and told me about it and asked me. I was doing a lot of activism in California this summer. They reached out while I was there. I said, okay, I'll get to it. I'll look into it. That's the other thing, is when somebody asks you to do something, say yes. Say yes. I'll look into it. Say, I will help you. I will do what I can. If I can't do it, I'll find somebody who it's more up their alley, or they know more about it, or they're more passionate about that, or they're more willing, whatever. So open your mind and remember that there's always a way. So I listened to him. I listened to what they were saying. So fast forward. Let me just take a pause. Okay. So it was brought to my attention that this church does a decades-long annual Labor Day pig roast. They asked me, would I disrupt? Would I do it DNC style? Whatever I wanted to do. They did not want to have anything to do with it. They just wanted me to organize it. So I set up an event. I set up a Direct Action Everywhere Portland event where what we were going to do, and many people were on board. We were locked and loaded, so to speak, nonviolent, all nonviolent, ready to go, ready to disrupt this Sunday worship service. And but what I decided to do beforehand that I think is really great, and I think I was inspired because Direct Action Everywhere in the Bay Area was doing for 3 months in front of a local butcher shop. There was a class every Sunday night where they were teaching different things about butchering. And when I was in Berkeley, I joined a few of them, and did a speak out at one of them on the Sunday. But for 3 months they did that. But they also were in conversation with the butcher shop. So the idea is we have to, as a community, get together and connect with people. So I decided to write them a letter first and give them a chance to have the conversation before we do the disruption. So I wrote them a letter, which, by the way, you can find on we can direct people, but there's a video that is out that went viral about me talking about what I did and reading the letter. And then there's also a blog on the Daring Vegan that says, pig roast canceled for good. And then I do the video there, and then there's a document, a Google Doc, where you can copy it. You can use it for your church and your community. You could use it for any kind of anything that you feel. Tweak it for your personality. It's free to use and play with as you wish. So I took the approach of the letter, and I wrote them a very, very heartfelt letter. No blame, no this, no that, but very honest and educational, and then being clear about what the ask was. And the ask was to stop the pig roast immediately. Do not roast the pig now, because what I was concerned about is I didn't want them to do the bureaucracy thing, like, well, we have to talk to this committee and that, and we're happy to do that over the course of the year. And it was like, no, in the letter I was very clear, but very not blaming or angry. I just said the conversation here is about stopping this pig roast, this coming pig roast, no pig roast, and then canceling it for good. And I'd also like to have a coming together around how we can work together. So that's what happened. I sent the letter, but I think also what happened is they became aware, because this event was public, the disruption was public, and I think they did become aware of the disruption. So just so people know, there was the reality that I think they were aware that we were going to disrupt. I never mentioned that in the letter. That was not my focus. But I do think that that's what the incentive was, to get them to even sit down with me and listen. So yes, we had a meeting. I went to the church. We had a meeting. It was phenomenal. And they had a solid, formal announcement. We will not be doing the pig roast. The pig has not yet been ordered. It's not happening, and we will no longer do it in the future. And it was the impetus because they said they had done some kind of animal theology conference before, so they were proud about that. They have some vegans and vegetarians like on their staff and among their congregants. So they were ripe and ready in some way, although there's other aspects of the church that I think the old guard was kind of clashing with the new guard. You get it, somebody like me, just a regular citizen, because that's what I said, ordinary citizen, Portland, whatever concern. And it could be the right time, the right place. They were already having an issue. Nobody ever really brought it up. And here comes me, some random person, and says, I want to have a conversation about this.
That's awesome. I love it.
It's incredible. And they asked, by the way, could you bring us materials? Could you teach us about this? And they're not vegan. They're not vegetarian. So yeah. I did. I brought various materials. We had an amazing meeting. They were incredible. And they actually, during the meeting or toward the end, they said, one of the pastors, I think, she said, "You're an evangelist."
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that part? I went, whoa. And I said, I'm a evangelist. So, and I've heard that term before, but, guilty as charged. I'm a evangelist.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so a couple of things I want to reiterate, because one of the things I want to do is, the overall mission of Inspirational Souls is to connect inspirational souls all over the world, but it's also to give, tips and information. And, one of the things you've been saying is that, how we're all connected. Another really, really important thing you're saying is find what works for you, but also it's also just about finding yourself, I think. And I think it's you become way more confident when you find that thing that drives you. And I love how you said, it's cool to be passionate about it. You can't please the whole world, So with that,
if you're doing it right, you're not pleasing the whole world. You're getting
exactly
right.
And so with that, one of the things, maybe you can talk about, give a few tips for people transitioning to veganism, kind of to backtrack a little bit, where they can find good information, share some of the sites or books or anything like that really helped you as you transition.
Yeah. So one of the things, so really quickly, again, I noticed my battery's low. Sorry about that. It's been a busy time. So one of the things I did is as I started, the things that I needed more of for myself, everything is out there. There is no shortage of information, people. So the most important thing is about being willing and about being open. Read and watch, as a lot of you do. If you've already gone vegan, you already know this. There's no lack of information. But since I get a lot of questions, I've been getting a lot of questions over the last year. I then started a website. I have so much work to do on it. It's a labor of love, burning the midnight oil all the time and all this stuff. But it's called The Daring Vegan, and that is because it was like, what am I? Find your own idea. What am I? It's like, I'm the daring vegan. I just, it didn't come overnight. It was just like, I'm this, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this. I'm the daring vegan. So find out what your version is. But anyways, the ideas I'm trying to create is a one-stop shop for people. It certainly is not that yet. But resources, like when everybody asks me, where can I get these flyers and leaflets? How do I know how to do this? I'm trying to put it all together. I also have a lot of recipes on there and there's recipes everywhere. But one of the things that I find helps me, because we're, being exposed to a lot of the pain and the suffering of the animals all the time, and it's so painful. I find I've had a renewed love for cooking, simple, beautiful cooking with just plant-based. It's just amazing. And So I recommend, so you can go to the site for that. But I'm not it's not about my site. It's about my process that I created that place that I haven't had any time to put more time into. But I recommend, I want to talk about the being aspect. And I love your shirt. I'm trying to read this whole time. Spiritual being vegan experience. Is that what it says?
Yeah. I'll get you one.
Spiritual being experience?
Yeah.
Got it. It's beautiful. And by the way, Antonio, I looked at the Inspirational Souls. I'm so honored to have been that you reached out to me, because what you're about, when I started looking at your stuff right before we got on, and I'm going to spend much more time with it now that we've had this time together, it's really powerful. It's what I'm about. And, I say to people, there's, when you're, I didn't make this up, but it's a paraphrase, when your actions and who you're being, inspire others to do more, to learn more, to dream more, and to become more, then you're a leader. And imagine that if every day you asked yourself, what am I doing today? Not about being perfect, not like how can I be perfect today, but what am I doing today that is inspiring others? Because I believe a lot of it is about who we're being, not what we're doing, because people can be like doing, but you want to realize that the impact you're having on other people, the energy of your impact. And if you're being judgmental, and if you're being divisive, and if you're being competitive, and if you're being, these are all human things, but if this is the come from, then it's not going to create the world you want to create. And if the world you want to create is based on peace and love and justice and equality for all, then the idea is to get into that space. I want to do a whole lot more that's connected to that. But you were asking something about, like, what can people do? So be curious, be open, be curious, lead by example. Thank you, Sarah Siegel. See, this is the example of a leader and a comrade. Sarah Siegel, who I know, who's an amazing, we've done a lot of activism together. We support each other in so many ways. She's doing exactly what I'm talking about right now. She got connected on here. She's interactive. She's engaged. She's saying, lead by example. Look, she said in 3 words what I was trying to, like, blah, 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 blah. That's what it is. And it's just like, whatever it is you want more of in the vegan and animal rights, or just in your life, do more of, be more of. Whatever it is you want more of, do more of, be more of. Don't look at outside there to give to you, it's that whole be the change. Be the change. Inspirational souls. We are all souls, and inspire is really in spirit. Be in spirit. I'm not talking about woo-woo. I'm talking about being present, being available for ways. How can I help? How can I serve? It's an inside job. How can whatever it is you're most frustrated about, like if you're frustrated about, like, I don't know what to cook or what to eat, then just say, okay, I'm going to learn. I'm going to get more resources. People gravitate to the positive work we do for the animals. Right on. What else were you asking me? Because there's so much I could say. And
yeah. So kind of, one of the things really quick is,
yeah,
how do you pace yourself, and have you wanted to give up, and how do you pace yourself around? Because you're furious, and that's what I noticed. I did the animal save, the big one, with James, and I try to be involved as much as I can with what I'm juggling. But you are just, your pace is like this. How do you pace yourself and stay present?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'd love to do a whole thing on that. The 5-second answer is, most of the time I have lots of energy, light, joy. That's where I live. I live in the space of joy, light, and love. It's not polly, wally, willy. It's not. It still includes anger. It includes, righteousness. It includes, fight the power. But when I do find myself burning out, we all burn out. But I think what I want to say is how I stay so fierce is because I self-care mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And what I do is I'm not interested in trying to change what I can't change. I'm interested in putting all my focus and energy in what I can change. And just ask yourself, the things that I can change, myself, my attitude, my ability to rally people, when all kinds of drama and things like that come into my sphere, it can throw me off, and it can be very emotionally painful if people are like, like doing that. But then I just like, bye-bye, and I move on. I don't make anybody wrong, but I just like onward. It fills me up to just keep fighting for the animals. And then of course you have your vegan friends, and you get connected. We have to replace the community we used to have with the people who don't understand, who are not supportive, with people who are, so that they can we can lift each other up, have those laughs. I was just in Toronto with the most amazing activists. And I want to say another thing. So Cuba Truth, Anonymous for the Voiceless, Cuba Truth, the Save Movement, that's what this is here, LA Pig Save, the Save Movement, Direct Action Everywhere, PETA, whatever it is. There's Mercy for Animals. We did a action in Toronto for Mercy for Animals. In Toronto, what I love it, what one of them said is, I just changed the t-shirt. Everybody's just one. So you go to a Mercy for Animals protesting a chain that's, doing horrible things to chickens, you put on your Mercy for Animals t-shirt. You go to a Direct Action Everywhere, you put on your Direct Action t-shirt. You go to an Anonymous, you get into your Cuba Truth, show the footage, and do outreach. And when you do Save, you're bearing witness. It all is the same thing, because when you bear witness to their suffering, it then makes you want to go out and then do something and let people know. Do it whether it's a disruption or an outreach or leafleting. I leaflet at farmers markets, you name it. But what I want to say about that is also, and you don't even have to wear a t-shirt, wear whatever, but also another easy activism, I say this all the time, Antonio, is order your t-shirts. I was one of those people who never had anything. I hated my t-shirts saying anything. I hated promoting. I didn't want it to have any brand, any BS on there. It was always like plain t-shirts, plain everything. I was never one of those people who was wearing stuff all over. Now my ball caps, my this, animal liberation, because when you walk outside, the minute you step outside and you have things on here, I think the back of it says something like cruelty, blah, blah. It's instant activism. You don't have to do a thing. You walk outside, you put some magnet bumper stickers on your car. You don't have to be an extrovert. You're just spreading the love that way. So that's, oh, I just wanted to clarify, did not do a speak out, did not have to do a speak out. And I told the church the minute that they agreed to not do the pig roast and to cancel it forever, I said, you have my word. They said, you're not going to do a speak out, are you? You're not going to come and disrupt. They didn't call it speak out. They said, you're not going to disrupt our church Sunday service worship. And I said, no, we don't want to. Nobody wants to go and make people feel bad and embarrass ourselves and disrupt something that's very meaningful to them. But we will. If we have to, we will. So yes, in answer to your question, you write the letter, you do the outreach, you see, it's a process. They may not answer positively right away, but don't make up your mind. Don't make up your mind. Maybe they don't answer positively right away, but then another letter later, or you go another angle. Forget about heading at the CEO or the pastor. Go toward the business administrator. Go toward this or that. It's not over till it's over. Don't get into the old story of it's always been this way, or see, it never works out, or I wrote a letter and I never heard back. That's not the end of the story. The story is much richer than that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so I don't want to get too much into this, but maybe a minute or so.
With heart and love. Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, a minute or so about the idea of sometimes there's, one activist telling the other activist that they're not doing enough. And what are some words that you've used, or some things that you communicate to other activists or people that maybe might not, like you said, I love how you said, there's behind the scenes activism, and people might not ever see that. If I'm not out there holding a sign, I might be editing your videos. So what are some things in the public forum, because we see that a lot on like on Facebook pages and things like that you might use to kind of quell that idea, or do you just even waste time with that?
Well, and that's the thing, is the beauty is forget about everybody spending time quantifying who's doing more or this or that. Who's to say that if somebody puts all those magnet, see me, not meat, and it's a cow suffering and a pig suffering, I have those on, and then go vegan, I have those on my car. They're magnets. I put them on, and then I take them off when I get to my destination, because people will take them. I put stuff in my front yard and people take it, whatever. But the point is that who's to say that somebody who's going around with those go vegan, whatever, bumper stickers are not converting, making more converts, because it's planting seeds, right? You're driving along, you're not vegan, you're driving along, and you see the go vegan, or you see the see me, not meat, and this horrible, this pig in a truck. And then the next thing you know, that person, they see that on the road, then 2 weeks later, 2 days later, 2 years later, 2 months later, whatever, then they see something else. And then they see something. It's planting seeds, as they say. But the most important thing is you want to, if we focus on growing ourselves and growing our process, then the next thing will be revealed. And the thing we have to do is, we have to get ourselves to a place where we're able to recognize when an opportunity comes along to be more effective for the animals. A great opportunity can come by, but if you haven't been doing your inner work, then you're not going to recognize that amazing, you might just judge it or dismiss it. So you have to raise yourself so that you recognize it. B, you have to get yourself to a place where it recognizes you. If you're not doing your inner work, then it's not going to see the value that you bring. You might know it when you're sitting in your house, but if you're not being that, it's not going to recognize you. But the most important thing is focus on yourself, because you might say something. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be doing what I'm doing, I would have told you, you've got the wrong person on the one hand. On the other hand, I would have told you, yeah, that's me. I wouldn't have known the specifics though. And I still don't know. I'm not interested in the future, and I'm not interested in the past. I really focus on the present. But I can't remember what the question was, and I know we just have another minute. Oh, with the very short time we have, I want to also, and go ahead and feel free to ask me another question, but I wanted to read something that's on my About Me page that I love, that I think is very timely. Most of you may know, or some of you may know, that Dick Gregory just recently passed away, died. And he was a longtime civil rights activist, and among other things, but he was also an animal rights activist. And here's what he said. This is Dick Gregory, famous guy. Animals and humans suffer and die alike. Violence causes the same pain, the same spilling of blood, the same stench of death, the same arrogant, cruel, and brutal taking of life. We don't have to be a part of it. And I just want to share that with people. Now, that said, it gets very, very painful, because I can be me, do all the activism and the vegan and do it, and have people see my Facebook who aren't vegan over and over, and then they'll be like, I love your passion, and then go out and eat roasted chicken or bacon on their cheeseburger. This stuff is real. It's not easy. That's why we have to hang together.
Awesome. So kind of in closing, upcoming events, or, some of the events that the Save Movement or DXC is doing coming up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I want to share. Okay, so September, DXC, Direct Action Everywhere, does every September. They do something different every year. This year is Post the Truth. And what I'm going to be doing is, you're going to see me do it, and a lot of other people. I have no idea where or how or when, but it's going to happen very, very soon, and I'm going to probably do it more than once. You post a sign in an establishment where there's violence happening against animals, and it says, attention, animals' lives are their right. Killing them is violent and unjust, no matter how it's done. And that right there, I invite anybody to, argue that, not in an argumentative way, but get into the conversation, with that. So that's what's happening this September. It's called Post the Truth campaign. Also, there's some other things that I can't mention that we're going to be doing. And it's very exciting, all that's to come. What else? Can't remember offhand. Post the Truth is a big one right now, for sure.
Yeah, there's always something, and they're growing in every city. The Save Movement and DXC.
Oh, I did want to say something, Antonio. I'm sorry, I'm going to get cut off probably, but here's the thing I wanted to say really quickly. You asked about, I went in and did a speak out, so I actually didn't do the speak out for the pictures because we didn't have to, but less than a year ago, I got so frustrated. I went into a grocery store. I mentioned to you one day, me and an activist, we filmed it. I walked into a grocery store, went to the meat section, and did what we're now calling solo demo. You just go in, you do a speak out from your heart or whatever. You just say what you say. And it went super viral because people really connected with, like, wow, she was brave. I'd never really done anything like that, although I had done it at the zoo, because after seeing the polar bear, the lone polar bear, I thought I was going to, it was just so painful. So you have to allow the rage to feel your feelings, but then channel it so that you can then be their voice rather than a complainer and a blamer and a disempowered victim of the whole thing. That's what I would say. What invigorates and vitalizes me is that I don't sit around complaining and blaming. I allow that rage and that anger to get channeled in for good.
So many awesome.
use your natural gifts and talents and allow yourself to develop those skills and talents and strengths and abilities and passions to be in service of the animals.
Awesome. So many good things. Where can people catch you online really quick? Once again, your website.
Dani Rukin Facebook.
And Facebook.
Dani Rukin.
Dani Rukin.
And the Dairy.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm going to ask you one quick bonus question. I ask everybody one quick bonus question. You actually already answered the one I usually ask, which is, how does veganism get to world peace? And everybody listen to the very first part of this. She has this beautiful explanation about, how we're going to get to world peace is dependent on how when we're awake, we treat all earthlings with the same love and compassion. So pick a number really quick between 1 and 200. Oh, we lost her. I think her battery just died. So everyone, I'll get Dani to do a short video with her bonus question, and we'll post that. This is all going to be on www.inspirationalsouls.com. Catch us there, here on Facebook. We also do spotlights on educators, veterans, creative types. And if you're a vegan and you want to share your story, please email us. Once again, that was Dani Rukin, activist, life coach, just an overall amazing person. This full video will be posted on www.inspirationalsouls. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.